The summer heat pressed heavy over Philadelphia. The kind that made neon signs hum and alleyways breathe. Mark Jensen, a tired baker closing up late. His daughter upstairs, sketching superheroes that always won. And a stranger, barefoot, trembling, slipped into the shop and whispered, "Please, save me. If they catch me, it's the end of me." Outside, an engine idled. Inside, the night was only just beginning. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more stories like this. Let's begin. Philadelphia baked like a brick oven that July night, and Mark Jensen's bakery held the heat like a secret. He'd propped the door for a breeze that never came. The last baguettes cooled on wire racks, the neon open flickered, the ceiling fan clicked in an uneven rhythm that matched the city buses sighing outside on Girard Avenue. His 9-year-old daughter, Hannah, sat at the counter sketching with a stub of pencil, caped bakers battling villains with rolling pins. "You need a logo, Dad," she said without looking up. "Heroes always have logos." "Pretty sure it's rent heroes need," Mark answered, half a grin, half a sigh. He boxed 2 sourdough rounds, stretched his back, and checked the time. Late. Too late for walk-ins, perfect for trouble. The bell over the door chimed. A young woman stepped inside barefoot, dress torn at the hem, hair damp with sweat, eyes scanning corners like light could hurt her. She pressed a hand to the counter. "Water," she whispered. It wasn't a request, it was a prayer. Mark slid a glass across before questions formed. She drank in fast, shaking gulps, then flinched at the hiss of a bus's brakes. Hannah's pencil stopped. The woman's wrists showed raw bands like something had rubbed them cruelly. On her shoulder, a bruise bloomed in ugly purple. "You okay?" Mark kept his voice low, even. Years in kitchens had taught him not to startle people carrying hot pans, or fear. She looked toward the window, at a car idling across the street, lights off, engine on. "Please," she said, barely air. "Don't let them see me." The fan clicked. The neon buzzed. Outside, the idling engine rose, then fell, like something patient. Mark reached beneath the counter for the key that dropped the steel half-gate, eyes never leaving the street. He didn't know her name. He did know the look. And he knew that whoever sat in that dark car hadn't come for bread. The bakery clock ticked past 9, the ovens cooling in the sweltering summer night. Mark Jensen wiped his brow with a flour-dusted rag, glancing at his daughter. Emma sat on the counter, legs swinging, sketching superheroes in her worn notebook. She always waited for him to finish cleaning, too stubborn to go upstairs to bed without him. The front bell jingled. Mark frowned, no deliveries, no late customers at this hour. A young woman slipped inside, barefoot, hair clinging to her face with sweat. Her dress was torn at the hem, and her eyes darted like a hunted animal's. "Water," she whispered, gripping the counter. "Please." Mark poured a glass, sliding it toward her. Emma peeked up, curious, but quiet. The woman drained the glass in desperate gulps, then looked around as if expecting the walls to close in. "You okay, miss?" Mark asked softly. She shook her head, voice trembling. "I can't go back. They'll find me." Mark's instincts tightened. He had seen people in trouble before, customers with bruised faces, neighbors too proud to ask for help. But this was different. The woman finally said her name, Sarah. Her voice cracked when she added, "I was kept, locked away. By family." She stopped, swallowing hard. "If they find me, it's over." Emma set her notebook down, eyes wide. "Dad, we should help her." Outside, a car slowed as if watching the storefront. Mark's jaw tensed. Whoever she'd run from might already know where she was. And suddenly, the bakery didn't feel safe anymore. The car outside idled too long. Mark's hands, usually steady kneading dough, tightened around the counter edge. He lowered his voice. "Sarah, who's after you?" Her eyes glistened. "My aunt. She raised me after my parents died. But she wasn't a mother, she was a jailer. I turned 18 last month, and she wants my trust fund. I wasn't supposed to escape." Mark blinked, caught between disbelief and fury. He'd heard of cruel families, but an aunt chaining her niece for money? The way Sarah's wrists bore faint marks, he didn't doubt it. The headlights outside flickered once. The bakery's glass door reflected the movement. Someone in that car had seen her come in. Emma slid off the counter and whispered, "Dad, I don't like this." Mark forced calm into his voice. "Upstairs. Now." "But. Now, Em." She hesitated, then obeyed, clutching her sketchbook like a shield as she hurried up the creaky wooden steps. Mark turned back to Sarah. "You're safe here. We'll figure this out." He reached under the counter and thumbed the latch that lowered the steel gate halfway over the glass door. A soft clang echoed through the shop. Sarah shivered. "They'll come inside. They always do." Mark glanced at the phone on the wall. He hadn't spoken to Detective Ruiz in years, not since that messy neighborhood break-in. But Ruiz had once promised, "If you ever need me, call." The car engine cut. Silence pressed in. Shadows moved across the bakery's window. And then a man's voice outside said low, almost taunting, "Nice place you got here, Jensen." Mark froze. Whoever was out there knew his name. The voice outside wasn't random. It carried weight, the way people say your name when they want you to know you've already lost. Mark's pulse thudded in his ears. Sarah stiffened. "It's him." Her whisper was sharp, terrified. "My aunt's man. He knows everything, where I shop, where I hide. He'll drag me back." A heavy knock rattled the bakery door. "Come on, Jensen," the man drawled. "You bake bread, you mind your business. Hand her over and we'll be gone. No trouble for you, no danger for that little girl upstairs." Mark's jaw locked. He hated how casually the man mentioned Emma. He hated more that they'd been watching long enough to know she existed. Sarah grabbed his sleeve. "Please, don't open it. They'll take me. They'll," her voice cracked, collapsing under fear she could no longer hide. Mark guided her behind the counter. "Stay low. Don't move." Another knock, harder this time. The steel gate rattled. Mark picked up the phone on the wall, punching in a number from memory. 2 rings. Then a gruff voice answered, "Ruiz." "Detective. It's Jensen. I've got a problem at my bakery." "Serious one?" The silence on the line was short, but sharp. "Talk." Before Mark could answer, a metal screech split the air. The man outside was testing the gate, pushing at it. "Last chance, Baker," he shouted. Sarah flinched, eyes wide. Mark covered the receiver and whispered, "Upstairs. Second door on the left. Go." She shook her head. "I can't." "Now," he hissed. Sarah bolted, skirts brushing flour-dusted tiles. Mark pressed the phone tighter. "Ruiz," he muttered. "Get here fast. Because they're not leaving empty-handed." The banging grew louder, fists against steel and glass. The whole bakery shook with each hit. Mark kept his voice steady into the receiver. "They're trying to force the gate. Ruiz, I've got my kid upstairs." "Hold them off," Ruiz said. "Units are rolling." Hold them off, Mark thought bitterly. He was a baker, not a cop. But he'd been in enough street fights as a younger man, back when the neighborhood was meaner and he was stupider, to know how to stand his ground. A crack spidered through the glass panel. A face leaned close, sneering. "Jensen, you don't want to play hero. Heroes get hurt. Mark slammed the phone down, grabbed the heavy rolling pin from the counter, and planted himself near the door. He could hear Emma's footsteps upstairs, then silence. Good, she was in her room. He just prayed she had the sense to stay there. The steel gate jolted. Hinges groaned. Then with a metallic screech, a hand forced through the gap, reaching for the lock. Mark swung. Wood cracked against bone. The man outside howled, yanking his arm back. "You're making this worse," another voice barked. Mark's reply was low, firm, "Nobody takes a girl from my bakery." Above him, the floor creaked. He looked up. Sarah was standing on the landing, trembling, her eyes darting between Mark and the door. She clutched Emma's sketchbook like it was a lifeline. "You shouldn't fight them," she whispered. "They won't stop." Mark set his jaw. "Neither will I." Another smash rattled the glass. This time it didn't just crack, it shattered. A boot kicked against the steel gate, shaking it loose from its frame. The night air rushed in. Voices cursed, closer, louder. And Mark realized he had seconds before the fight came fully inside. The bakery's front gate buckled under another kick. Flour from the shelves drifted in the air like smoke, as if the shop itself knew trouble was coming. Mark braced his rolling pin in both hands, his eyes fixed on the shadow looming through the broken glass. "Step aside, Jensen," the voice growled. "She belongs to us." Mark barked back, "Nobody belongs to anybody." Another slam. The lock groaned, nearly giving. Mark's chest tightened, not from fear, but from memory. Years ago, before Emma was born, he'd stood in this same shop during a robbery. Back then, Ruiz was just a rookie beat cop, and Mark, foolish enough to tackle a thief with nothing but a bread knife, had bought Ruiz enough seconds to draw his weapon. They'd caught the guy, but Mark carried the scar on his forearm as proof. Ruiz never forgot. And now Mark was cashing in that memory, hoping it was enough. He looked up the stairs. Emma's bedroom door was closed. Good. But Sarah stood there, pale and shaking, still clutching Emma's sketchbook. The pages fluttered with her trembling hands. "They'll kill you," she whispered. Mark shook his head. "Not while my daughter's upstairs." The gate finally tore loose with a deafening crash. Two men pushed through, one clutching his swollen wrist from Mark's earlier blow, the other broad and grinning like he wanted the fight. The bigger one sneered. "Rolling pin. Cute." Mark didn't flinch. "Try me." The first swing came fast, a crowbar aimed for his ribs. Mark twisted, wood cracking against metal. Pain shot up his arm, but he stayed on his feet. Flour burst from a knocked-over sack, coating the air in a ghostly cloud. In that white haze, Mark stood firm, a lone figure guarding the stairs. And for the first time in years, he realized, this was bigger than bread. This was about who he was willing to be when no one else would stand. The bakery became a battlefield. Flour swirled like smoke, coating the men's boots as they advanced. Mark gripped his rolling pin, knuckles white, heart pounding a rhythm that matched the ceiling fan's broken click. The bigger thug swung first, a wild arc of the crowbar. Mark ducked low, thrusting upward, catching the man under the chin with the rolling pin. The thug staggered back, coughing white dust, but didn't fall. The second man, wrist wrapped in a rag from Mark's earlier strike, lunged with a knife glinting under the neon glow. Mark's breath hitched, he hadn't seen the blade until it was almost too late. He twisted, the knife grazing his apron, slicing clean through cloth. Sarah cried out from the stairs, "Stop. Please." That split second distracted the knife man. Mark seized it. He rammed the rolling pin into the man's gut. The thug folded, gasping, dropping the knife. Mark kicked it across the tile where it spun under the pastry case. "Still think you're a hero, Baker," the bigger one spat, charging again. Mark felt his strength waning, arms shaking. He wasn't built for brawls anymore, years of kneading dough weren't the same as fists and steel. But then, above him, a sound. Emma's door opened. "Dad?" Her small, terrified voice froze him more than any blade. "Stay inside," Mark roared. The thug grinned, hearing her. "Cute kid." Something inside Mark snapped. He surged forward with a force that surprised even himself, slamming the man against the wall so hard the display shelves rattled. "You don't speak about her," he growled, voice low, deadly. From outside, faint but rising, came the wail of sirens. The thugs heard it too. Panic flickered in their eyes. "You called cops?" the knife man gasped. Mark tightened his grip on the rolling pin. "Told you, nobody gets taken from my bakery." The sirens grew louder, bouncing between the brick walls of Girard Avenue. But the fight wasn't over. The bigger thug, still pinned against the wall, gritted his teeth and drove a knee into Mark's gut. Air whooshed out of him, and the rolling pin slipped from his hands. Mark staggered back, clutching his stomach. The knife man, recovered enough to crawl, spotted his blade under the pastry case. He lunged, fingers brushing steel. Sarah screamed from the stairs, "No!" Her voice cracked through the haze. Mark forced his body forward, diving onto the thug before the knife could come free. They crashed to the tile, flour puffing up around them like smoke bombs. The man's elbow caught Mark's jaw, rattling his teeth. Then, the bakery door slammed open. A commanding voice cut through the chaos. "Police! Drop it!" Detective Ruiz strode in first, gun raised, vest half-zipped like he'd come running straight from his car. Two uniforms flanked him, flashlights slicing through the dusty air. The knife man froze, caught mid-reach. The bigger thug raised his hands, chest heaving. Mark coughed, pushing himself upright. Relief flooded him, but not enough to ease the ache in his ribs. Ruiz's eyes darted to him, then to Sarah trembling on the stairs. "You okay, Jensen?" the detective barked. Mark spat blood into a napkin. "I've been better. But she's the one you want safe." He jerked his chin toward Sarah. Ruiz narrowed his eyes, recognizing her face. "Sarah Whitmore. We've had a bolo out for you for 2 weeks." Sarah clutched the railing, tears streaking her flour-smudged cheeks. "You found me?" "No," Ruiz said firmly, lowering his gun. "He did." The uniforms cuffed the thugs, dragging them out into the sweltering night. Mark sagged against the counter, chest still heaving. Upstairs, Emma peeked from her doorway, clutching her sketchbook. It was over, or so Mark thought. Because Sarah's next words nearly dropped him harder than any punch. "My aunt, she won't stop. She has money, lawyers, people everywhere. If she knows I'm here, she'll come for all of us." The bakery was quiet now, except for the hum of the ceiling fan and the faint hiss of the neon sign. Flour still hung in the air, settling slow as snow. Mark leaned against the counter, ribs throbbing, while Ruiz guided Sarah to a chair. "Tell me everything," the detective said. Sarah's hands twisted in her lap. "After my parents died, my aunt became my guardian. Everyone thought she was taking care of me. But she kept me locked away, cut me off from the world. She told people I was sick, that I couldn't be seen. All the while, she waited for my trust fund to unlock on my 18th birthday." Ruiz frowned. "And when it did? She planned to drain it. I found the documents. She'd forged power of attorney papers. The men you arrested tonight? Just 2 of the people she hired to keep me under control." Mark exhaled, anger mixing with disbelief. A family turning prison warden for money. He thought of Emma upstairs and felt sick imagining her in Sarah's place. Sarah looked at him, eyes shining. "If she knows I came here, she'll come for your daughter too." "I'm sorry." Ruiz shook his head. Not tonight. I'll get you protective custody. Sarah flinched. You don't understand. My aunt has reach. She donates to campaigns, funds half the neighborhood watch. People listen to her. If she learns I talked. Mark cut in, voice firm despite the ache in his chest. Then she'll have to go through me first. Sarah blinked at him. Why would you risk that? You don't even know me. Mark thought of Emma's little voice at the stairs, of her sketches of superheroes who saved people without asking for anything in return. He straightened. Because my daughter's watching. And I won't teach her that we look away when someone needs help. Ruiz gave him a long look, half respect, half worry. And outside, somewhere in the sweltering dark of Philadelphia, the real enemy, the aunt Sarah feared most, was likely already plotting her next move. Morning light crept through the bakery windows, turning flour dust into glitter. Mark hadn't slept. He sat at the counter with cold coffee while Emma dozed upstairs. Sarah sat across from him, still barefoot, her eyes hollow but steadier than the night before. The doorbell jingled. Mark's shoulders tightened. Ruiz had promised officers would swing by. But the figure who stepped in wasn't a cop. It was a woman in a sharp linen suit, pearls at her neck, her hair pinned tight like steel. Sarah went rigid. Aunt Margaret. The woman's smile was thin, venom wrapped in sugar. My dear, you've caused such a mess. Running off barefoot into the city, hiding in bakeries, her gaze flicked to Mark. And dragging good people into family matters. Mark stood. Family doesn't hire thugs to break glass in the middle of the night. Her eyes hardened. You don't understand. That trust fund is mine by right. I raised her. I deserve it. Sarah's voice cracked. You locked me away. You stole my life. The door opened again, this time Ruiz and two officers. Their guns weren't drawn, but their presence shifted the air. Margaret straightened, masking her fury. Detective, surely you'll see this as a private matter. Ruiz cut her off. The forged documents say otherwise. You're under arrest. For the first time, Margaret's mask slipped. She hissed, you think this ends here? Money buys time. Influence. Lawyers. You can't protect her forever. Mark stepped closer, his flour-streaked apron like armor. Maybe not forever. But last night proved something, you don't scare her anymore. And you sure as hell don't scare me. The officers cuffed her, leading her out as she spat curses that no longer held weight. Sarah sagged in her chair, tears spilling. It's really over. Ruiz placed a hand on her shoulder. It's a start. Emma's footsteps padded down the stairs. She blinked at the sight of uniforms, then at Sarah. Without hesitation, she offered her sketchbook. You can keep it. Heroes need proof they're real. Sarah clutched it to her chest, smiling through tears. Mark wrapped an arm around his daughter. Exhausted, bruised, but steady, he finally let the truth settle. Sometimes courage didn't look like capes or headlines. Sometimes it was a baker, a rolling pin, and the choice to stand when no one else would. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more stories that stay with you.